and how they combine together. That's the first cluster of 5 or 6 lessons. The second cluster is a very practical one. We are looking at AI solutions, AI technologies that help us as KMers so we can perform better as KMers. Cognitive search, experts, finding experts in the organization, auto tagging, etc., etc., etc. There are many AI solutions that can help KMers today, and we want to know them so we can implement whatever is relevant in our organizations. The third part, and this is the most important part as I see it, is a new part. And we will be speaking about it. I'll first explain what it is. We believe that KMers can leverage artificial intelligence projects wherever they are and whatever they deal with. The other day, I was speaking with some a big data person, a data science, and I asked them, I said that as I look at it, as I analyze, they hardly ever, please, whoever is with 2 mics, close one. And they hardly ever, well, I'm hearing myself twice, or there's someone on the line. Please mute yourself. They hardly ever debrief in a methodological way, in a systematic way. They hardly ever manage their lessons, manage their risks. They don't know how to look for risks. The knowledge engineering at the beginning of the project is partially intuition, but not much more than that. And I went step by step, and things that I know as a KMer and things that we do as KMers were very strange to them, and they didn't understand what I'm speaking about. So I think that it's not that only we can earn, or it's not that we only think that we can earn from AI. We can develop, we have many abilities, and we can develop the AI projects, the AI activities, make them be more efficient, more effective, more successful in organizations. We have here ideas how to do it. It's not a mature methodology, because it's these are new ideas that we are testing here and there. And we know data management is 70% of an AI project in average. Who understands in data management and auto tagging and cleansing? We do, but it's an AI project. So we believe that if we think together, work together, and we will give you all the first ideas we have, but we are sure that you will take them and bring them to even higher levels, KM could be in a totally different place in its reputation, in its value proposition, in the way it changes organizations, because organizations today are all based on their knowledge and information. The last cluster, I'm just stopping myself, otherwise I'll speak a whole hour about this cluster. But that's the most important one as I see it, because it's novel, it's new, and we have to crack it down and find how to do it the best way we can. And we have the great first ideas, but you will take it on. And the last cluster has to do with starting tomorrow morning in organizations, not only knowing the theory, but how to actually run the projects. So these are the clusters of our course. Again, as I said, it's not a course of teaching AI programming or data science programming. We're not going to learn here there won't be tasks working in Python, etc. I wanted the first, when we planned this course, I thought that like good KMers, we would all say hello and everyone will introduce themselves. We will always now open 15 minutes earlier and enable people to share their thoughts, to speak, to to make friends one with another wherever they don't know each other yet. But we have 130 people who have registered from 32 different countries. And I will say that again, because it's not that it's not anticipated at all. It's a great surprise. 32 countries, 103 people who have registered together to learn KMAI. And thank you for your trust in us. And we really hope that we, together with you, will really be all satisfied, not only at the end, but also in the end and along the process. A few words about the framework. Oh, you know what? We'll start from the end. This is our link to our chat, to our WhatsApp group. So please, people, join the team so we can collaborate in between the courses, in between the sessions, but also within the sessions. Not everyone here is a native English speaker. Sometimes things are understood literally, but they are not understood the concepts, because when you will hear Annie, she's speaking about great things, but we have to hear again and again until we all understand her great ideas. So people, A, stop us if we are too fast. B, use the chat, but also use this WhatsApp that will stay with us also along the whole course and maybe also after. And people, please ask questions, discuss also why we are speaking. Also speak loud and we will hear you if you have any questions. And also ask questions on the WhatsApp. When I am not lecturing, I will be sitting and trying to see if there are things that didn't get an answer, and I will address them to the specific lecturer that is now on board.
Please write the link in the chat so everyone can get it.
Will do. Vincent, please help us with that. Okay, thank you. The audience, again, is KMers with knowledge and experience. We are not teaching here how to do KM or what KM is. We have 22 weekly sessions starting from today, 5 months from now until the end of August. We have pre-reading assignments. It's not that easy to have active discussions with over 100 people, but we will try our best, and we are asking you to read before something that has to do with the lesson that we are going to speak about, the idea, the topic of that session. And we will start every meeting almost, not the presentations of the suppliers, but most of the majority of the sessions will start with a pre-reading assignment and with a discussion that brings us all to the same page. And from there, we continue being already on a higher level. We are here at a collaborative learning session. So we are prepared with a session, with a lesson, with a lecture, but please use our WhatsApp and ask, speak, comment when you are during the meeting and in between. We are sending you to some additional reading later on. Whoever wants additional reading to the additional reading, just tell us and we'll send you even more. We have 60% of our audience who, thank you very much, said that they will volunteer on our various channels to help us spread the word, to help us run our digital channels, to help us write some bodies of knowledge that we are now preparing on collaboration, to help us with uploading to YouTube, to LinkedIn, to the website, and to help us with bringing more people from more countries, not only to this specific activity, but to all of the KMGN activities. So I will send you a questionnaire, and please write there wherever you think you can help, and we will divide you into smaller teams, and we will see that everyone finds something that he feels comfortable, or he or she feels comfortable with, to collaborate on. And the last thing is this WhatsApp is also a support network. So use it also to ask one another questions, to clarify things, to hesitate, to put a question mark. We are all here in together, and also to leverage us with additional ideas. So I think that I took 15 minutes. Great. That's what we planned. And dear Annie, it's your turn now. Please start with a digital transformation. We are all listening.
Moria, just to interrupt you rapidly, could you copy and paste the link, because I don't have it and the one I copied doesn't seem to work. So if you don't mind sharing it for the chat.
Yes, I will send the link. It's please, people, I just want to explain. You think that it doesn't work because it's not a computer link. It's a link that only if you press it on the telephone, you will be transferred to the WhatsApp chat. It doesn't work on the computer. It works only on the telephone. That's one clarification. And the second clarification is we start every week on 1 GMT, 1 p.m. GMT, not on 1 UK time, on 1 GMT. So please notice the same hour as today, every meeting. I will send out the recordings, I will send out the materials, and everything will be uploaded in the coming weeks, week by week, also to our digital channels. Please do, please, Annie, and I will, Vincent, thank you. I will send out the link.
Okay. Are you ready for me, Moria?
Yes, you have.
Okay. I trust you all can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Up? Okay. First of all, I want to say thank you and welcome to this course. The first start of it is to talk about digital transformation. The reason that this is, we're coming out with digital transformation first is because you're going to see that this is actually the platform that will help to make artificial intelligence and knowledge management successful. So although we need to integrate the two, we also need a platform that they can work on somewhat seamlessly so that we can obtain the results that we want. So I'm going to talk for probably about a half hour. I'm hoping I'm not going too fast. I'm going to try to get through all the slides, but I'm going to talk through, again, the digital part, or, you know, why do we need this digital platform? I'm going to look at it from a system perspective, because I think a lot of times we tend to forget that systems means parts that move together. And so we have to have these things that move together.
Annie, speak a bit slower. Mm-hmm. Because you are too fast. Not everyone is a native English speaker. I know you have a lot to tell us.
Okay. Yeah, I was moving fast because of the time, but okay. So the system, we will talk about a system perspective, and then we'll talk about each of the components, the data, the information, intelligence, and knowledge, which is a new paradigm, so to speak, from the old one. And I'll give reference to the old one that we've always looked at, and the point of cognition that we want to reach, and then the convergence of these. This will be great starting out, because as we go through the remainder of the courses, you'll see where a lot of this terminology will come back into play. And by the end of this course, hopefully you'll have a big view picture of how all of these play together. So don't expect to see everything in this first course, because what we're doing is laying the platform so that as we're speaking, you begin to see how it evolves and grows into the infrastructure of the platform that you need to run knowledge management and artificial intelligence. The reading, there's a question out on it. When you read from the World Economic Forum, the digital transformation, powering the Great Reset, we will talk, if there's time at the end, to see if we get a couple of perspectives on this. You know, the thought of whether or not, after we've been plummeted into a digital platform, so to speak, because of the pandemic, are our organizations mature enough to handle this? And can they actually move forward from this current digital surge that has occurred because of the pandemic? I just like to throw little thoughts in there. And unfortunately, the thing is, we are taking on a different view of things and a new order of things. And that sometimes causes disruption. So how people are going to handle disruption is how we actually prepare for them to handle it. So it must be, and I'll read this, it must be considered that there's nothing more difficult to carry out, nor more doubtful of success, nor more dangerous to handle than to initiate a new order of things. As we're going through this, what we're going to see is we think it's a new order, but we've actually been at this for quite some time, and we've been kind of not converging the pieces that need to come together. So we're actually hopefully going to mitigate some of that danger that's there. A lot of times, what I like to do is when we're speaking, sometimes we have different perspectives, and that's part of what we know with the field that we're in. And there's so many definitions out there. So in order to make certain that we're on the same page, I like to kind of define things so that we know the context that I'm speaking in. So I look for different definitions, and a lot of times, you know, I don't try to make them up. I look for those that help to support what's being said. And the Enterprise Project on digital transformation had one of the better definitions in my view. Basically, the point is that digital transformation is going to integrate digital technology into everything within an enterprise or a business. It is going to change the way we operate. It's going to change the way we work. It's going to change the value that comes out of not only employees, but partners and customers. And if you look in the article, it also extends it to government and society, okay? So we're looking at how we can actually operate much better and much seamlessly across all of these stakeholders and still get the same value or better value than we've had in the past. One of the common buzzwords that's out now, I run into this a lot, and people say, well, what do they mean by the democratization, you know? And this comes strong within data, because what we've been working at for quite some time is a common business language. And this democratization is that you make it available for all. So in order to make something available for all, you have to be able to speak the same language so that it is interpreted and understood the same. So when we democratize things, what we're doing is making certain that we are calling it an apple if it's an apple, and we're calling it, you know, whatever it is within the context that it is represented. In a lot of organizations, especially with data, you'll find that a data element is actually within the data element, you have it 10 times throughout an organization, sometimes up to 100 times throughout an organization, because it's used in so many different areas. And as it's propagated out to those areas, what happens is they change the names of it. So when you look at this in IT and you're trying to manage this data and they're trying to integrate the data, you're losing a lot of the integrity of the data, because at that point, you may not have the authoritative source of it. So when you look and you see all of these business areas and each of them requiring the same data for a different purpose or a different use, you have to ensure that it has the same definition, it has the same name, and that it is understood how it is repurposed throughout your enterprise. So when we look at these trends, again, you're seeing that most organizations integrate at a certain percentage across the organization. We've even introduced new disciplines like data science that also needs to look further into it to help us in forecasting.
Annie, there's a question about research and communication departments. How do they fit in?
Are we going to take questions now, or at the end?
Whatever's convenient for you.
Okay, I think hold on to them and let's answer the questions toward the end, because we might get into lengthy questions and then I won't get through the presentation, okay? What we're seeking to create within digital transformation is what is termed, and Gartner terms this a digital twin organization. What I've done is change it to digital twin enterprise, because we're looking at the whole enterprise, and you see that our stakeholders are internal as well as external. So what we're looking for is a duplicate of real world enterprise. You know, we want something that looks like the real world. So it must have the same characteristics as what we are trying to represent, okay? So as we talk through this, you'll see that our path to digital transformation is that we need data. Data is critical because that's how we actually create our digital representation. Our digital representation has to represent all of the components of the enterprise that we're going to be including into our models and into our, you know, the operations and how we're actually working and those things that we're automating. So now we have, if we do that, we're using the proper representation to create the virtual models that represent the components of what we're doing. And that's, for example, even if we're even if we're building an artificial arm, so to speak, we need to understand how that arm works in real life so that we can actually represent all of the components that actually make that arm to work. And then what we do is we build the virtual model, which might be a prosthetic so that the person can use it. And then you understand how the activity happens so that they can move the fingers. We also then need to look at the insights and efficiencies. So we're capturing those metrics and those elements or those values that tell us how we're doing and what's happening as we're actually operating. And at the bottom of that, what we have is the improved organization. So if we've actually presented all of these, then we should be able to look and see improved organization by making the proper decisions or thinking on how to move forward so that we can avoid obstacles or failures, and so that we can actually find innovation and new ways of doing things that help us to do them better. And we go back to the old saying, better, faster, cheaper, okay? So this whole transformation is going toward what we're terming an enterprise digital structure. And it's all based on what's known and applied within an enterprise. And the whole ultimate goal is to improve the organization of the enterprise. So therefore, knowledge management is critical, because what we need to do is know what is there for us to use to be able to apply it in order to improve our value within an organization or the value of an organization. So when we start looking at these capabilities that we need, and this is where it's going to become critical, because even with artificial intelligence, we have these perceptions of what we do and how we do them and what pieces are correct or not. So if we look at our perceptions, we're also looking at individual perceptions. And so therefore you're going to bring in augmented human thoughts, and that can be a little difficult. And then we start to categorize things. We've done taxonomies. We look at how we bring common elements together so that when we work with them, we know the categories that they're in. And then the contextual, the environment around it, because we've always known that even in systems, you had to have at least 3 environments to make certain that things were running right. And if you change one element in one of those environments, then you would have a problem. We always knew them as tests, stage, and production. And all 3 of them had to be the same, which is in the same context, in order for us to get the same results. And we move on to predictions and plans, mainly plans, because we've been planning for quite some time, a lot of times in our strategies, but a lot of times our strategies don't necessarily align with what we're doing in our operations. So therefore, we really don't see the evolution of how we're actually improving. So I'm changing the term again toward you from the digital structure to a cognitive enterprise system, because I just introduced that we need the system because we need the components to work together. So when we start looking at the components working together, from the start with data and naming them appropriately so that everybody understands the proper naming convention or understands the proper purpose of a particular data within the organization and how it feeds up into its individual components, we have to mimic that cognition in there, because these are the things that we need to know. And that starts at the data level. And then remember, we get to that representation, and where the user comes in is at that process level or that symbolic representation. If I'm building a bicycle, then the user is going to see it as a bicycle, and they're going to see that it is represented by the components of the spokes, the wheels, the handlebar. All of that comes together to be somewhat of a virtual for them, along with the functions and things that need to be there that are actually information, because now it's no longer just raw data or streams of data. It has been given structure, so it's more information. Now, when you have information, it's great, but does information really give you knowledge? The fact that I know that, there are white cars in the desert, that tells me there are white cars in the desert. Now, the fact that I know that there are white and black cars in the desert, but you know what, the white cars are selling, but the black cars don't, might be a knowledge point, because I come to find out the desert is dusty, so the black cars get too dirty, so they don't purchase them. See, now I have actionable data. So I take that information and I put it in a context or perspective so that I can make it knowledge. And here, make it intelligence. So intelligence is that actionable data that knowledge needs to pull, because if you have the intelligence and you have put the properties together, it provides evidence, then with knowledge, I can act on it. And here's the other thing, I can't act on it if I don't know about it. So therefore it must be communicated. So we've taken it from information, we've put it together for intelligence so that we know we have something actionable. And now we take it to knowledge so that we can make certain that it is shared and distributed and that it is acted on. So this cognitive enterprise, one of the keys to it is the structure, the functions, and the elements that, the concepts and the elements that we have to put together. And this is where you'll find that a lot of times we were ahead of our time, and we looked at some of the early researchers that were out there, and you come right back to like mental models, and then you start looking at the Peter Senge again, you know, who brought in the mental models, but we just weren't ready to see how it actually fit into the business environment. We start looking also at like the Alan Newell, who actually laid out the cognition or the theories of cognitions within a business, and all of these models start to apply again. And so we're building back on the mental models, the decisions and actions, and then the context layer that actually shows human thought process. So I'm moving forward to say that all of this that we're doing, and we start talking about what are we emulating? We're emulating human thought, which is a brain. And I think that's what makes this a little bit more complex, because we have had artificial intelligence for quite some time, and we have had all types of biometrics and things that we can actually leverage. But unfortunately, I think now the time is right when we're beginning to realize how the pieces come together. So let's talk about these components that I've talked about: data, information, intelligence, knowledge, and cognition. When we get into data management, and you hear a lot of people now saying data governance. Data governance is very important, but what we do is we kind of jump over management because governance sounds like you have more of the control of it. But if you forget about the management, then you have nothing to govern. So when we go back and we start looking at our data, do we have a clear picture of our data? Is our data accurate? Is there a clear understanding of it? You know, there are a lot of components that we need to lay out and think about when we're actually preparing to build this data structure or this data architecture that we need to feed into our information and into our subsequent intelligence and then knowledge, to ensure that we have the right data and it is of integrity to be used to actually help us drive our organizations. We wind up going from data again into information, and this is where we get the representation. This is where it becomes real to the user, because we start to put concepts together, we start to put actually components together that make sense to them in a business language. So we have the business processes, we follow that with the procedures, we have policies within an organization that drive the culture of the organization. At this point is where you begin to realize too that you have your tangible assets. I mean, you can really put names to those, because you know the tangible assets are your money, are your computers, are, you know, all the different things, but you don't have the names of the intangible assets that are being driven, that help to support the organization, which are much more significant right now than the tangible assets. So we also begin to put things into domains. We begin to put them into concepts of how we work. If I am doing a chart of accounts, which is very important to my organization, then that becomes a domain that I can build and put all the elements in so that I don't have to go and search for them. I can now go specifically to a domain and know what I'm working with. And these feed our models. So you got several different dimensions coming in, which is the old concept of data warehouses, of how the various dimensions actually feed what I need to know in order to make my decisions. We cross that bridge and then we come into artificial intelligence. I kind of put business in parentheses because artificial intelligence needs to be put in context too. And right now, when I'm talking about an organization and a thinking organization, I'm actually talking about business intelligence. Now, if I were in a different area, I would be talking about a different type of intelligence, which we have used for years now. We have so many intelligent agencies, and they have specific contextual data that they're using. So they call it specifically what it is. So artificial intelligence is the umbrella. There are quite a few different areas of intelligence that can be called out. When we cross over, remember we were in information, and in information we went into the process area, which is perfect for robotic process automation. Because now if we understand the components of our process, we can automate those and also see where we can augment humans to be able to execute them better. The neural networks that we have, if we understand our data, remember what we're doing is, I tend to call it cross-pollination, but we'll use the biological term of colloidal. It brings together all of those relationships that let us see how things are working together or how things aren't working together. And so those neural networks are huge, and they need to be managed such that we understand those linkages. Now, when you look at the human, those colloidal effects help us to do things. And that's why it's so foreign to us, because sometimes we don't understand what relationships come together to allow us to do many of the things that we do as humans. And with machine learning, having these networks and being able to roll that data up into concepts and being able to act on that data helps us significantly, even with deep learning and machine learning, it helps us significantly in managing our enterprise such that we have all components defined. The key here is, though, when you get into intelligence, there's a level of abstraction, and how you insert it is very important, because sometimes we look at it as one, but you can have intelligence in products, you can have intelligence in process, and you can have intelligence in insights. And all of those are composed within a business enterprise. So we need to have that architecture so we can see where these things work and at what level, so that we can ensure that we are managing them properly. Here's the good thing when we talk to knowledge, you know that what we're doing is, prior to that knowledge area, what we're doing is we're exploiting. We're looking back and seeing what we can do in order to gain in the future. And then we have the looking forward, because what we're doing is we're exploring as to how we can improve based on what we know as well, or how we can create new or innovate based on what we know. So the key here is intelligence is proactive knowledge, and that shows you the link to them, because intelligence is giving us actionable data, and knowledge is to be able to act on that data and then share it such that it can be used throughout. Reactive knowledge is guessing and goshing. So if you don't have some plan of where your active data or your proactive knowledge is coming from, then you're just guessing at it. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because it has worked for some, but in a lot of areas it hasn't. So we come to knowledge management, which is where you're familiar. And remember, knowledge management is that capture, that creation, and that maintenance of knowledge within an organization. And if you look in knowledge capture, I'm showing you there's still tacit and there's still explicit or codified knowledge. You got one that's human intelligence, and you got one that's machine intelligence. And that machine intelligence comes directly from the artificial intelligence that we're building today. And then you also still have to look at how you move your initiatives, because personalization and codification, it depends on how you're working with them, and you follow through with some of your knowledge management components, which is, again, when I start building algorithms, they become content. And they become content for knowledge, because someone needs to know where they're at when they have to reuse them again, or know where they're at if they're having a problem and they need to fix them. Communications and awareness, we still say this with knowledge management: if you do not communicate it, then it is useless. If I find something and I'm doing it well and I cannot share it with others so that they can do it as well, then it is useless, and they're not aware of it. So we're building that awareness. And of course, feedback again, and I'm emphasizing on knowledge management because all of these feed off of the intelligence that we capture. And I'll just run through a couple of them. The technology, learning, we have to have metrics and measurements. A lot of times we tend to build our metrics and measurements in data warehouses using star format, but we actually don't validate where the elements are coming from, and we don't totally, I want to say, certify the metrics to go into our algorithms. This just gives you a view of the evolution of it. So we got intelligence, knowledge, and augmented intelligence, which is cognition. As you notice, we're building towards certain elements of intelligence. Then we add on to it with knowledge. And the first thing you see is like awareness, because with knowledge, you're aware of what's going on. And if you're knowledgeable, then you can constantly use it. And then we get into cognition, which is where we're headed into thinking. We are now in reasoning and thinking. And this is why with artificial intelligence, we go up through the levels, because remember, we start with structure, we get to unstructured, and then eventually they want to get to a point where I'm assuming that robots can think more better than humans, which that's debatable if we want to go there or not. I'm not going to cover this one, you can read it, but it's just telling or summarizing what I've already said about enterprise cognition. This gives you, with the technical view of it, just a simple view that you're starting with data models, which is raw data. You're going to process models, which are putting data into domains so that they have more concepts and they're more business-like. You're going into actionable data, which is intelligent models or your algorithms. And then you lead on into knowledge models, which is algorithms as well, off of data-driven action. And then we cross over, and with that experience that we have, and we combine our experience and augmented intelligence, we have cognition, and we can do forecast models. Now, whether or not a computer can do that for you now is very questionable, because they don't start out intelligent. You have to train them. So the concept of training comes from augmented intelligence, and how it builds on is another story. This is just another view of this so that it puts it into where I keep talking about the business language. When you look through this, if you look at it, you see data management parallels with data transformation and go through the digital representation area. You see information management partners with process management, artificial intelligence process with change management, because you're giving actionable data. So you must be able to see where the change is and identify what needs to happen in order for it to move into the knowledge area or then the learning. And then you have the cognition and the strategy. And strategy is where we plan, and that can also, once again, at a level of abstraction, that can as well be created in artificial intelligence. One thing I want to emphasize with this too is that this cognitive enterprise is a system, so it has all the components. And even though we have this evolution going from data to cognition, there's so many other areas that still need to be around it. We still have to fight the 6 battles of what, why, who, where, when, and how. We still have to ensure that we have our people involved. We've already talked about process and information, but people are critical to this. The skills, if you read the article, we're looking at a big change in skills. So we're going to be upskilling and reskilling people, and those things need to come out. You have to still do the risks, the obstacles, the outcomes, and the benefits. This is part of the strategy so that you can make the proper decisions. And even though we've been lacking in frameworks and methodologies, KM has not had a standard methodology yet, and AI that doesn't either. So we need to come up with our methodologies and put them together so that we have one, which hopefully would fit within a data transformation, so we'd have everything to be able to cover all levels. And then maturity and measurements. So these things still come into play, and we can't avoid them, or else we will not be driving towards sustainment and renewal or maintenance. We would just be putting things into place and then working with them without any idea of how we're going to maintain them. This gives you a physical view of everything that I've been talking to. If you're building, it's starting with the internal data. You're looking at search agents. You're going up through your algorithms. You're going to have your visualization, and then you have learning with hypotheses and changing, because you have evidence for change, and performance measures. And this becomes cyclical, and it goes around. But one thing I want to caution, and we'll talk about too, is security and access rights becomes very important in this, simply because all this data that we're working with, there are privacy issues and there are protection issues, because we are representing within a digital format our reality. And we have to realize that reality uncovers a lot of information about us, and it is ubiquitous, so it can be all over the place. And we're going into the 4th industrial revolution, which has tools that allow us to be global, okay? And one thing about this, when we're dealing with components, what it does is it allows us to do the as a service strategy. So no longer do we have things combined together. We can actually put things together so that people can be more independent. It facilitates you being able to go and get what you need based on your security level or your access rights. So when we go to flip it, this just shows you that right now there are about 30% people who are, or kind of being successful with data transformation, but we still got a 70% that we need to be concerned about. And this is based on Boston Consulting Group. One of the things that we're emphasizing too, and even with the articles you see, we have been propelled into a digital era now, whereas before we were going in circles. Pandemic took us farther than we could have ever imagined in how we're now using the internet and all of the tools that we have in order to be able to represent ourselves digitally and then be able to automate. So one thing I want to point out though is the pandemic also brought a lot of mental health issues and a lot of problems. And remember, I said perception is tied directly to the augmentation of humans. So we have to be very concerned about their perception, because when you build those algorithms, their perceptions are what they're putting into the particular algorithms. So organizations are saying that they're going to have to really emphasize the mental health of employees, but they also feel that the pandemic significantly accelerated their digital transformation efforts, and the pandemic is fostering formation of new partnerships and alliances. So we're going to see a lot of change here, but we also have to be cognizant that there are going to be some new skills that are going to have to work with the behavioral issues that we have had surface as well. Most the CEOs feel 76% of them feel that we're going to have to, in the next 12 months, that digital transformation is going to be our main focus. So a quick takeaway with this, because we're coming up on time, but digital transformation integrates digital technology into all areas of an enterprise. It is not something that you just do in one area and walk away from, because we have these, like I said, these colloidal effects. And if we're trying to identify new ways of doing things and also identifying impacts and how things are impacting the performance of others, we're going to have to get the full picture. We have to have the same language. You can't keep missing each other when one calls it a tomato and another calls it a tomato, and it's just because of the pronunciation of it, or it's because of the use of it. It's multi-purpose, so you want to make certain that you're clear on, that we're using the same thing. It's just repurposed in this particular area. The ultimate outcome of digital transformation is a real world digital representation. I keep emphasizing real world because I want us to understand that all we're doing is, just like with the typewriter, when we went to create a typewriter, a word processor evolved, and that word processor has everything that was real on that typewriter, the return key, the carriage return, all of that is represented now. So as we represent an individual, I know that if I'm represented within a system, I want to be represented accurately. So if someone goes to look for something, if they want to find my salary so that they can give me an increase, I want them to find the salary that is actually tied to me, that has been certified, and not one that's repurposed in another area. So think about the real world. Build a critical path that evolves from data through information, intelligence, knowledge to cognition, the ability to think and reason. And this isn't as easy. It sounds like I'm saying it's easy, but to evolve, we don't understand how the brain works, but we do understand what we want to do. So we need to think through each of those steps and how they actually integrate or converge with each other. And the last but not least, don't forget the auxiliary processes that support the critical path. You have all of these other areas, and mainly, they come in project management. They also come, you got change management. You have all these methodologies that are already defined that we need to incorporate into the framework of how we're doing knowledge management and artificial intelligence, and how the two actually combine. So I made it through that, and I think we have 10 minutes for questions and answers.
I want to take us back, if you can go back to the pre-class assignment, to slide number 3. You asked us whether whether we think that if there is any digital maturity of organizations, if we are mature enough to speed with the digital transformation. I want to elaborate this question and go out and ask all of us. If I look at organizations, I feel that we have digitization, we have digitalization, but we don't really change the way we work yet in the majority of the organizations. We have, a handful of organizations that have done it, that have performed the digital transformation. But most of us use, if I'll take the idea that you used just now, we used the word processor for a few years as a typing machine. And that's what we're doing with the digitalization. We didn't change the state of mind. And therefore, we are not really in the digital transformation age yet, even though we want to be there. Only the pioneers are there. So what I'm asking us all is, A, what do you think, guys? And B, how can we as KMers help change being a game changer, having the digital transformation and not only the digitization or the digitalization? And thank you, Vincent. Does anyone want to refer to this slide and to the questions I added to it, please?
So, hi, this is Lynn. So I'm just getting ready to leave the Defense Department for about the 4th time. But yeah, what I have discovered in large organizations like the DoD is there's an inability to grasp this kind of concept. So they do it piecemeal. There's no governance framework. So when you design a governance framework, it actually scares people. So because leaders who are in the management positions like political appointees, SESs, most of them don't, at least my experience has been in the people I'm working with right now, do not increase their knowledge because they're comfortable in their position.
Just a minute. Okay, thank you, Eddie.
Because they're comfortable in their position, they don't have to stretch their mind, if you want to call it that. And so so I have made a last-ditch effort to try to do this in the Defense Department, using different capabilities and showing how they tie together. They're focused on a big data project. The problem with the big data project is there's no context to the data. So I'll give you an example. Really, I'll be quick. Someone did a whole lay down of the largest companies in the Defense Department that are taking the most money for technology support. And they said this company gets this much of the budget, the technology budget, this gets this much, this gets it. What they don't have is the context. And the context for us is that these companies that we're hiring put communications and data and IT capabilities across the globe. Right? And they do exercises. They have to install them. They have to support them. They have to uninstall them. They support all the embassies. So there's no context. You can say what you like. This company gets this much money, but there's no context. And they're still struggling with that. How that data then feeds into the process of how you actually do work, which is run by tools that are used like Software AG has this ARIS alphabet, which takes you from performance measures and planning all the way through the use of your information technology, performance measures, and so on and so forth. You need to tie those things all together, and you need to link those to your overarching strategy and performance metrics for achievement. And the Defense Department, the people just can't grasp. They can't grasp it. It's a big challenge. It's not just change management. I think that word's overused. I think we have a knowledge problem. And I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you so much.
And I feel you're exactly correct.
Lynn, I take two things from what you said. You spoke also about they don't have the urge to change. They don't have the ability now to change, but you gave, and they lack the understanding of the importance of the context. We will go back to that, but you gave us a great idea, working piece by piece. And if you want to add, Ruth, when I hear you already, you want to also to come and join us, please.
No, yeah, absolutely. I was saying, Lynn, she hit the nail on the head. We do. You're right. Change management has been there and we understand it. And you're right, it's overused because we do understand we need to have communications, we need to have training. Most organizations shortcut that budget, even though they realize that as part of knowledge, those is integral to us moving forward. I agree with her that there's a knowledge problem. And that's one of the things that I'm seeing in the surveys that are upper level, not that they have to go back to school, but we have to reskill them as well so that they can understand the dynamics and the impact of us making these changes. We've been doing a lot of this, but it's kind of missing. It's stovepipe. People will put things in one area and then users will get frustrated with IT and will start out in their own area. So there's no integration and there's no convergence. And I think she hit the nail on the head. It should start from strategy and travel down and use the architecture. But I don't think most companies have been willing to put the upfront investment into establishing the architecture that needs to be there.
We have 3 minutes. So Rozwan and Balaji, please go.
Yes, please. Yeah, this is Rizwan. My question actually is digital transformation is a means or ends? Because if it is means, that is fine because the hierarchy wise is there. But if it is ends, I see that if we really follow the hierarchy like data, information, intelligence, knowledge management, the final objective of this particular artificial intelligence or digital transformation should be welfare of the public, right? So the welfare should be on top of everything, which is missing. I think the missing component of the whole structure and the system that I put in place. And I've also actually read the reading documents of the World Economic Forum, and I'm really sorry to say this, that I just got a sense of AI divide, like the digital divide you're talking about. Because all the information and the analysis and the persons are there, they all talked about the Fortune 500 company people or plus all the elite group of people. What about the general people in the third world countries or the developing countries? Their perspective is also missing here. So how do you actually combine this, the ground reality perspective of the artificial intelligence and the development aspect of it? And then how do we combine with the kind of the global reset that we're talking about? So I think there's a missing link there. Thank you very much.
Yes. Annie, do you want to answer half a minute before we let Balaji speak?
No, go ahead. I agree. I'm hearing what he's saying.
Okay, but we will say that you have a great point here, and we have to remember that it's means to end and it's not the target itself, and we have to be all careful with that. Balaji, please, I'll give you the, please speak.
Sure, thank you. Dr. Green, great presentation. Really insightful. So on this particular slide, I think one of the things we in organizations struggle with is there's a challenge to protect the business that we are in today while we continue with our limited resources to invest in digital transformation. So I think there is prioritization, which is going to be a very important component for most organizations with limited resources on path to digital transformation. So perhaps in the coming classes, if you could touch upon how do we really prioritize where to make the initial investment in? I really liked the previous, the one before Rizwan, the lady spoke about having an overall governance and architecture before starting off and then running things through strategy. But having some kind of a guidance on how do you prioritize your investments would really be helpful. So it's more of a ask than a comment or a question, Maria.
Okay, I noted that, I'm trying to see the name. I noted that, and I will look through and see if we have an area where we can emphasize that, okay? The prioritization of your investments.
So dear people, we are ending an hour. Next week, we will have a continuation to this theme of digital transformation and going into the essence of AI. It's a bit difficult to understand the first time. We will be sending you the recording. We will sending you all the slides. And of course, please discuss because there are more questions than answers. Start discussing and we will think about it together all the week. Thank you. And we promise you also to have tools in the second cluster. We will be also speaking about tools. It's not going to be an academic course. So please be patient, whoever asked about tools. Thank you. And good day to you all. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome aboard. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Exciting. Congratulations.
Okay.
Thank
Annie.
you.
Annie,
Yes.
how do you feel?
Yes.
Now it's only the three of us.
I feel good. You know what though? The time was cut and it's like I had other things I wanted to put in there, but because I had counted on a couple of more minutes, but then I forgot that we were going to do the 15 minutes of introduction. But it went good. I felt good. What do you think?
Great.
Feedback.
Great.
As a
We
participant,
are
Dr.
together with
Anna.
another 20 people yet, but it's great because we are all here together. I think we have to start, let people also discuss and answer questions that are clarification and questions as they come up, as they pop up, because they are specific to specific slides. And we don't want it to be a lecture. I think we want it to be collaborative as possible, even though we are in a tight scheduling. So it's going to be balancing that we will find the way out.
I hope so, Maureen, because
That's great.
a 40-minute lecture, I mean, you know, I'm trying to do like 15 or 20 minutes on the back end of questions. If you allow the questions to come within the presentation, you won't get through the presentation.
Okay, so it should be some balancing. Maybe we have the discussion before and we let people chat as we speak. Let them chat and discuss, and we will together discuss at the beginning or at the end or both of them. But it was great. And I think that people were, wow, that okay.
Mhm.
I hope they thought that it's wow. But we will wait to hear from them. Thank you so much, Annie.
It was brilliant, really brilliant,
Thank
Dr. Green.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you so
hear?
much. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, and like I've written there, it's very thought-provoking. I'll have to revisit the recording, and you know, then again, so I would recommend to all the participants also that they should. I'll put it on the WhatsApp group that they need to visit the recording and think through things, because you've given us a lot of thought-provoking concepts today. So thank you very much, and looking forward to the next sessions also.
Thank you.
Bye all.
So Moria, one
Bye.
suggestion. This is Vaid here. So first of all, thank you, Dr. Green, for a really brilliant session. One suggestion
you.
that instead of WhatsApp, while we do need to have the WhatsApp group, can we also start using the LinkedIn site for KMGN for discussions? Because in
Vaid,
WhatsApp, things to drown over there.
you have the volunteers and you start with them, the LinkedIn team. We started WhatsApp the same as with the collaboration, the collaboration conference, because we thought that that's where people are. Not all of them are on LinkedIn, and we wanted to help them so it will be easy to ask questions and to answer. But we have to decide on our digital strategy, what goes to LinkedIn and what stays on WhatsApp. Whatever you tell us, we will do.
In some countries where the LinkedIn is not available, so
Yeah, I think Russia is the only country
Yes,
where
yes,
it's not
yes.
available.
Yeah. And there's a suggestion that has just come in from Khatab, where he suggests that can we make it 90-minute sessions? Looking at the content for today, I feel maybe that is a valid suggestion.
Yeah, even I was expecting it will extend a bit. So if we set
Okay.
that expectation with the participants that please be ready for extension by 15 to 20 minutes, depending on the kind of interaction that is happening, I think people will be more than happy.
So I will start by extending it to 75 minutes, and we will see if it goes well, and then we will start. I won't turn it from an hour to an hour and a half, but I'll add 15 minutes and we'll see what happens. And I hope that it's all fine with people's schedules, because people have, of course, other things as well. We're not the only commitment. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And
Thank
good
you.
night.
Annie?
Have a good day.
Great start.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank
Great job,
you.
Annie. Good job.
Bye, all.
Thank you.
That was really good. Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Excellent.
Have a great day.
Bye all.
Next week we
Bye.
come back. Bye, y'all.